Hello, everyone. My name is Michael, and welcome to the Metaphysical Journey. I'm going to be honest, this is my second recording of this message. The first one came out a little too long, but in that process, I was also receiving information, so it was taking longer. So I'm going to do it a shorter, well, hopefully a shorter one, and just condense it down as much as possible. For this collective reading, this is covering like the next 1 to 2 weeks. I think this will play out during that time period. And this isn't going to resonate with everyone in the way I present it, but there is information there that I think will make sense to you. So for this, I asked my spiritual team the question, what is something that the collective needs to know that maybe subconsciously is happening and it could play out and it's going to be beneficial for them to just be aware of this? And I immediately heard the words table manners. And I had one of those golden retriever moments where it's like, what? Table manners, what do you mean? Please explain it to me. And I started receiving the mental movie that I get. That's how I see things. It's a movie and different things are built into it. And what I saw was a family having dinner around a table in a dining room, and there was a small child. It was dessert time, and the child was reaching for the last piece of something on a plate, and the mother's like, "No, don't do that. Don't take the last piece. Someone else may want it." Now, someone else may want it. Who is that someone else? The child didn't know. No one stepped forward. The child just immediately backed off. So I saw that, and then I saw how that plays out over life. And this is where it can show up in a variety of ways. As a small child, when we're little, like ages of 1 to 5, 1 to 6 or 7, somewhere, some say up to 1 to 8, we're little sponges. And we are told things and we receive them and we don't question them. We take them as truth. Now, our parents that are telling us things that they heard from their parents, and it goes all the way back down the line, in that early formative period, we accept things as truth. And how that plays out over time is like, don't take that last piece, someone else may want it. That plays out in the way of you start thinking that I'm not worthy of that last piece. I'm not good enough for that last piece. Someone else more important than me should get that. And that continues to evolve and grow. And we can sometimes become people that we automatically put ourselves last. We automatically take a step back and give preference to someone else. Even complete total strangers we don't even know because we don't feel that we're deserving of that last piece of whatever it is. It doesn't have to be of food. It can be anything. You can be a person that you have a lot of things on your plate that you have to deal with, and you're struggling just to get everything done. And someone will call you because they have a problem. And they call you, it's usually going to be often people that do it a lot because they know that you're going to take care of it. And so you stop what you're doing, you take a step back from your thing and you step forward or around that to help that other person, to give them what they need, because that's what you're supposed to do. We were raised to be good little go-givers, not go-getters. As I don't realize it's often said the reverse, be a good little go-getter. No, we were raised to be go-givers. And we now find ourselves in life where we're giving everything away. We have nothing left. So that is the tone for this message. I then went to the card deck closet and it's like, all right, for this message, what deck should I use? And I was drawn to Into the Lonely Woods by Lucy Cavendish and artwork by Dan May. This is a deck that I bought about a year and a half ago, I want to say. I was shopping in a store with my friend Kapatahi, and we were looking at decks, and I was really drawn to this one, and I was walking around with it for quite a while. Um, and I ended up putting it back. I don't know, there was something not right about it. And I remember Kapatahi, she's like, you're not going to get that deck. And I'm like, I just don't feel right about it. It seemed very depressing to me. And I don't deal with depression well. And I didn't really want that energy. This deck right here taught me a big lesson. And so it's interesting that this comes back around now for tonight, because I haven't thought about this in a long time. On my way home that day after leaving the coffee shop, I was thinking about that deck. It just stayed in my head. Like, there's something I should get it. And I was just having this conversation with, I guess, my spiritual team. I'm like, I don't know. I just don't feel right about it. And the lesson I learned on this is like, no, you need to get that because it does have an energy that you are going to need in the future. It'll play out. You'll see that. And I'm like, but it's depressing. And what I learned is that every deck has its own energy. And depending on the type of reader, people get different things from different decks. It's the pictures speak to them, and the messages don't come from the deck. They come from our spiritual team. But the decks can provide a certain energy that, when paired with the messages, it makes total sense. It's the whole package. We know that in communication, there have been a lot of studies done on this by universities. I think Harvard's one of them that says how we receive communication, only 7% comes from the actual words. And that's why a lot of readers don't read the guidebook. It's like, great, no, I'm going to do with what I receive. So only 7% comes from words. The other 93% comes from body language, tone, gestures. So when we're communicating with people, only doing email, we're only getting 7% of actually what's being conveyed in the words alone. And that's why we have emotional triggers sometimes, because we build in our thoughts and emotions and everything into those words. And we can take something a variety of ways based on how we're feeling and what we think about things. So when you have the right deck and it has a certain energy, it provides all of the background type of stuff that the message coming in has. Now, I also receive emotions as well and things, and they will actually label themselves and tell me what they are, and they'll show me the backstory behind it. It's a weird thing, but it's just the way my team operates with me. So, Into the Lonely Woods. I drew two cards in the first reading, and I'm going to continue with those for the message. And the first card that I received is The Return of Lost Selves. Now, this is how something's going to play out this week for you. That I already explained that early table manners taught us a variety of things, or that early concept of don't take the last piece. Over the course of your life, possibly, as that idea continued to develop, you became a person that just you give. You give all the time to everyone. You just give. And you possibly have begun to feel or that you're just not worthy. And that if you don't give, you're a bad person. You're selfish. You're mean. You're cruel. You have the means to do it. Why aren't you doing it? You owe them that. And that's a problem. Each time you do that, you give a part of yourself away. You give a piece of the pie. Eventually, you have nothing left. You have a plate with crumbs on it. And those crumbs represent you, what's left of you. So it's almost like, we're I'm using the term wrong, but we're breadcrumbing ourselves, basically, is what we're doing because we've given everything away. We have nothing left. And you'll one day, if you haven't already, multiple times, stood in front of a mirror, looked at yourself, and asked, who are you? I don't even recognize you anymore. I can see you, but I can't feel you. Who are you? And you realize you've lost track or lost touch of who you are as a person because you've been giving it away for so many years that a piece of you went with everything that you gave out. Now here you are trying to rebuild and reestablish, and all those little pieces of you are gone, and you're having to literally recreate a whole new you in some way to establish just who you are from this moment in time forward. So who are you? And where did you go? And if you start thinking back, you will see a piece went to this, a piece went to that. You've just been giving this away. So this week, you can when we think of the return of the lost selves, and it says selves, many, not one, because you've so fractured yourself and broken yourself apart and given it away. It's a lot of stuff you have to try to bring back in to just literally, I said it before, re-establish who you are, recreate. Those table manners that we were taught, those early things, and how they play out today can show up in some other really bad ways too. In that, every time you are faced with the situation that you have to make a decision or you have to give an opinion, do you do so or do you not? Do you just say, you know what, it's not worth it. I'm gonna just be quiet. Every time you do that, you give a part of yourself away. You give ownership to the other person. You give them control over your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, everything that is the foundation of who you are. It is time to reclaim your sovereignty because you matter and you do make a difference, or at least you could if you allowed yourself to. You don't need the permission of other people to be who you are. You're automatically here as who you are. You have to take ownership within yourself. You have to give yourself permission to be who you are, to think what you think. We deal with situations on a daily basis with people um, where something comes up or something is said, there's a conversation or something taking place, and you have a very strong opinion and you have a belief about it. Or you see something played out in front of you and you know the answer. You just know it, but you don't share it because you don't want any confrontation, no conflict. So you say, I'm just going to go along to get along. Every time you do that, you give you give a piece of yourself away. Every time you do that, you lose track of who you are and you give the power away to someone else. You lose your own sovereignty. It's like you're giving away your kingdom to whoever that you feel is more important than you, that deserves the last piece more than you do. That's really a problem that we all face, and we do have to stop that. For many years, we've heard that, especially last year with people making changes and stuff in their lives, and this year too, it's like, you have to let go what no longer serves you. It's cliche. Let it go, it no longer serves you. What does that mean exactly? That it no longer serves you? Well, let's take that surface thing and go one layer deeper and let's look at the energy flow level. I talk about energy all the time because this is where the rubber meets the road. What is the energy pattern of that? If it no longer serves you, that means you're serving it and you're getting nothing back in return. It should be a circular thing that you give, you get, you give, you get, and it's mutual. And if you are in relationships with people that it's not that way, that is a major moment for change, right? That's an opportunity. And this week, you're going to be faced with that. And it's something that you've been faced with for a long time. You've just been doing it, doing it, doing it. And now it's time to say, I have to make a stop to this. No more. This can be people that call you because they have, I'm sure you're on their regular speed dial. And whenever there's a problem, they call you because you always fix it. Their problem becomes your problem and you take it on. So you are emotionally attached and entangled in that. And you feel that you have a stake in the game for whatever reason, and they expect you to do something. They can call you and give you this sob story about, because of blah, 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 I need this. And the blah, blah, blah is always the same. It's just a variation each time because it's very well rehearsed. And they come to you because they know you're going to do it. When you give your energy, and I'll put it that way, your energy is your thoughts, your opinions, your time, your money. That's a big one. Anything like that that you are going to give to them for their benefit. Are they giving anything back to you? Usually, no, they don't. So it's time to cut them off, to say, not going to happen. It's going to stop. Now, I realize that if you're a parent and you have children, that's a different situation. We, I don't have children, but, when it comes to our loved ones, we do make exceptions. However, I know when I was little, we had an allowance that we got. Allowances are common, and we had an allowance, but there are things that my brother and I had to do. We had chores, we had duties that we had to do, and when we did those, we got an allowance. Now, these days, I don't know how that plays out. There's a lot of entitlement with people that they call you and expect you to give them something. And if you don't, they get really offended and they somehow make it seem like it's your fault. So if they're asking you for stuff on a regular basis, and in the process of that, you're thinking, I don't want to do this. I'm tired of this. They do it all the time. I don't know. Ask yourself the question, what have you ever received from them in the past? If it's a one-way circuit, it's you going to them, they're using you. You have to call it for what it is, whether it's family or whatever, they are using you. And many times, if you feel guilty somehow for not doing it, they are using emotional manipulation. It's wrong. It shouldn't be happening, but it does all the time with some of the people that we're the closest to. And that has to be stopped. We can still keep them in our life, but we have to establish boundaries. And the boundaries for us, not for them, where we say, I'm not going to cross this line anymore. It stops here because all we're doing is enabling them, facilitating what they're doing, and they're not learning their own lessons. If they have major financial problems or they have major project management problems or whatever it is, it can play out any certain way. It's their problem. It's not yours. It's not your job to solve their problems because every time you do that, they don't learn the lesson that they're supposed to learn. Eventually, if they will get it, that's great. They will move on and they will not have those problems anymore. But it's not your job to take care of that. So it is time to start reclaiming your lost selves. Pull them back in and put them together and figure out what's the glue you need to keep it together. And the glue can be that glue is your energy of saying, I'm no longer going to give money. I'm not. As hard as it is, they'll find somebody else. They're not going to stop. They'll keep going. They'll just go to someone else, but that's energy. That's a type of energy you don't have to give out. Your time, reclaim that for you. You need that. You need to recharge. And you can't recharge when you're constantly just exerting and putting everything out there. So that's the first card. The second card that came up is the learning of rights. The learning of rights. And this is a little are they bunnies? I don't know what these are. They're cute, but I have no idea what type of creature they are. And there's a little a baby or a stuffed animal that they are throwing up in the air with a blanket. I hope it's a stuffed animal. I have no idea because that's just cruel. But anyway, and they're teaching this small whatever this is of how to do things. And this goes back to table manners because the things that we learned as a child is what we carry forward. And what we were taught as a child is what our parents carried forward. And it goes back all the way to the beginning of time. What began as don't go outside the cave, there could be a saber-toothed tiger out there, stay inside in the cave where there's a fire because it's safe. That over the millennia has translated into don't go outside, the boogeyman might get you, something like that. So these things, they have long patterns. And we were taught rights and different traditions as a child growing up, and we've carried those forward. If you were raised in a very, any type of an organized religious system, you were taught the beliefs and the structure of that organized system, and you're expected to follow that. Well, this is where it gets interesting because there's a point in your life, and if you're watching this message and watching me read cards, you've already probably crossed that point in your life where you think it's okay for someone to read cards. I'm not going straight to hell, right away or anything. But there's a point where you no longer agreed with what you were being taught or being told. You had a disagreement and you stepped away from it, or you're in the process of. When we step away from what our upbringing or foundation was, a huge chunk of us goes. It's left behind, and we feel like I can't return or I'm not in sync with it. It's a part of us is there's a huge void. Let me put that. There's a huge void that's there. and we have to try to fill it with something else. When I left the church, and I didn't leave the church until I was a lot older, but when I left, that was hard for me. I left the organized religion, but I didn't leave God. I felt like I found God once I did leave the church. A totally different relationship, but that's my personal one. But I was faced with this thing of like, all right, now that that huge chunk of stuff is gone, what am I going to replace it with? And you'll feel like you're just out there in a boat in the middle of the ocean, floating around with no sail, no oars, nothing, no map. You have no idea where you are. You're just floating around on the water, and it takes you wherever you need to be. And you're hoping eventually you hit dry land, but you don't know. It's scary. It's uncharted. No clue. So you land on an island, and let's say you land on an island called the Metaphysical Island or something, and it's, the metaphysical community. I'm going to be honest with you. It's probably even more messed up than organized religion because most of them came out of organized religion, so they know how to organize and know how to do things. And you're going to be faced with trying to now establish your own spiritual practice based on whatever's out there. And there's a lot out there to pull from. And each of those different areas that you look into have ego driven mindsets, beliefs, structures, patterns behind it. It does. You're going to be told, oh, well, you should do this, and these are the steps of how you have to do it. You have to do it this way because that's what we've done, as if it's in writing somewhere. It's not. It's just something that works for them, and they think everyone should do it the same way because it works for them. Doesn't mean it's going to work for you. When I started the metaphysical journey, I had my little logo and I wanted a little phrase or something. And what I was given was your journey, your way. And I thought, well, that's kind of cute, but whatever. I've come to realize that means so much more than I even realized when I was given that. It's because it is your journey done your unique way. Your spiritual practice, your walk as a human through this incarnation is what you make it to be. And that is in coordination with your spiritual support team. They will guide you where you need to go and how you need to do it. The things that work for you won't necessarily work for anybody else. It's not meant to. You are unique. You're special. There's not another one like you. And what works for you is what you have to follow. So if you're in a situation or a thing where people are telling you, and this is my own personal one here, it's like, no, man, to connect to your spiritual team, you have to meditate. You need to have a meditation practice. Every day you need to meditate and you need to do this, this, this. Well, no, does not work for me. I cannot get into any type of a weird meditative lotus position. That's not going to work for me. I'm sorry. It doesn't work. Meditation does not do it for me. It may for you, it may not, whatever. But we're going to hear a lot of those things. Another area where this is played out big time and it's kind of incorporated into the metaphysical thing is the law of attraction. And the law of attraction actually now is in a lot of the churches as well too. They've just kind of taken bits and pieces of it and it's incorporated. It's like follow these 5 steps. You have to do this, 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 and then you will manifest the life of your dreams or whatever you want. Has it worked for you? I can say that I've had hit and miss, but over the course of everything, I'm learning that I have to just find my own way and know what works for me. And that's important to know because your spiritual team and your team is made up of your guardian angel, your master guide, other project guides that come in to help you with things, your ancestors. That creates your spiritual team. Your spiritual team probably has so many people, it would boggle your mind. You have mega support there for you. They work with you in a unique way. So, however that shows up for you, that's the pattern you always want to stay with until that's altered in some way. But you have to stay true to that. So, maybe a regular meditation is not for you. And that's okay because you have a very busy life. You have a lot going on. Can you really set aside 30 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever to do that? Maybe not. But you know what? You don't have to. I believe you don't. You have to do whatever. whatever it is that puts you in your thoughts, think about that. What is it? Is it knitting, cooking, doing the dishes, taking a shower? And I honestly think if I had a really huge hot water tank, I could solve the problems of the world because I love that water time. Is it sitting in a ball park or in a gymnasium while you're watching your children play sports? Whatever it is that you have those moments where you're in your head, that's how and when your spiritual team's going to work with you because they know your schedule just like you do. They're not going to intrude upon your schedule. They're going to work with it and adjust around it. So pay attention to those moments where something happens and it's just like time stops and you just go into whatever it is. Hobbies have a lot to do with that. Any type of a creative thing is when you're going to have those moments, and that's when they'll work with you. And that's when you get your information. You can ask a question. The more detailed the question, the more detailed the answer you're going to get. So work with your team in those moments when you have time to think. Not when you have time to stop and get on the floor and do whatever it is that's done in yoga and all of that. And yoga is a great one because when people do that, they're also in their mindset. They're just out there and they can communicate. The team can communicate with them more effectively. So whatever works for you, your journey, your way, that's important. So the learning of rights also has to do not just with the past things, but with the future of you creating your own um, I'm going to say your own religion, your own spiritual practice, whatever it is. I encourage people to learn. Now, this is a total break from a lot of traditional religious teaching. I encourage you to learn about everything you possibly can. Learn about the different spiritual paths, the different belief systems. Learn about them because it's good to have the knowledge. It gives you different perspectives. And along the way, you are going to see certain little things in each of those that really resonate with you. So if there are certain things about um, Buddhism that just really flip your little trigger, your little switch, pull those little aspects out and put it in your little toolbox of what you want to incorporate into your practice. If there are things about different areas or things of and what people say witchcraft, pull those out. I've done that. I love witches. There's so much there. It's old knowledge that goes way, way far back to our ancestors and the old ways of doing things. There's a lot of wealth there. Pull those components and put them in your little box. And you can do that with everything so that you create your own unique way of following your practice. You're drawn to those things for any number of reasons. It could be related to past lives you've had where that was important to you and your soul remembers. Your soul's like, yeah, and you pull it forward. But this beautiful practice that you will create is going to be so uniquely yours. It's not going to be like anyone else's. And don't fall into the trap of thinking that because it works for you, it's going to work for everyone because it's not. We have a world filled with that. And that's why the metaphysical community, um, not community, the metaphysical just realm is hard. It's hard to navigate because there's so much. We have just so many options. It's a big buffet and it all looks great. And it is. There are people that like this or that, and everyone has different tastes, but you have to do what's right for you. Only put on your tray on that cafeteria line exactly what you know you want and what you're drawn to, because what you end up at the end with is what is going to be the most spiritual nourishment for you. It's going to help you grow and move forward. So, the return of lost selves, take a stand this next week or the next 2 weeks of knowing who you are and what you believe. And that comes from establishing your own rights, your own practice, so that you can stand firm. I wanted to pull one last card, and on this one, I was pulling from the Divine Energy Oracle by Sonia Choquette. And the card that I pulled, and I thought this deck could be interesting because you never know where you're going to get. But the card that came out was really cool, and it's Retreat. And this is a perfect closing for this because it is time to retreat. Retreat backwards from allowing people to suck the life out of you energetically. Cut those energetic vampires off. They're not your friends, they're using you. You have to call it for what it is and stand firm and just say, no more. I'm done. No more. I'm not going to do that. And tell them that. If they have a problem with it, so be it. They'll find someone else. And they will push back and say all kinds of things because, again, emotional manipulation is based on your emotions. If these are people that have done this to you for a long time, they have you figured out. They know your switches better than you do. And be prepared for that and still stand firm in your beliefs of what you know to be right for you and just let it go because that detachment is hard. It's going to hurt and it's going to hurt you because you care, you feel, and that's what they've been playing on for a long, long time. You're going to have people tell you that suddenly now you're a problem. And you're a problem because you're not giving them what they want. It's a problem for them, but it's a blessing for you. And if someone says, you're high maintenance, no, they're low effort. There's a huge difference there. So pay attention to the energy flow pattern, the energy of what goes out. Is anything coming back? Because if it's not, that's not for you. And it's time to let that go. And these will be the people closest to you. And that's what makes it hard. So remember that. So retreat, step back, know who you are, stand behind your beliefs. You don't have to tell anyone anything. You just say, no, no more. This stops. And stand firm in your spiritual practice, your spiritual journey done your way. Thank you so much for following me on the metaphysical journey. I appreciate and love you all so much. I hope I still have friends after this. Anyway, I hope that you have a wonderful week or a couple of weeks. Make it wonderful on purpose and more importantly, with purpose. It's time for you to reclaim your sovereignty. You're worthy of it. You deserve it. It's yours. Don't let anybody take it. Thanks. Bye.